And now for another episode of Hey, I don't want to forget this! Storytime with Andy.
77 years ago, more like 40 years ago, the seeds were planted. My childhood friend and his family loved racing. They would go down to Daytona almost every year to watch the 500. Plus, I watched a few races with them when I was over at Casa de Singer. Also, I had my Uncle Doug, who was really into Davey Allison. He too was a huge influence on me. So when I moved down to the hub of NASCAR country, Charlotte, North Carolina, in 1988, it was only natural for me to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway and delve into all the racing my little 9th grade body could handle. I knew all the drivers and their numbers, car make, and sponsors. I was a sponge for useless NASCAR knowledge. FYI, one of the biggest regrets I have in life is that I turned down a free ticket from my neighbor to the first All-Star Night race because it was the same night as my prom. Due to Zillas, I didn't have a date and wasn't going to it anyway. Another regret is that I never went to a team shop and asked to just sweep the floors or something. I think I could have worked my way up. Oh well, looking back is always 2020, right? Also in this time, Humpy Wheeler, the president of Charlotte Motor Speedway and fellow alumni of my high school, would pay the school to clean up the track after each race. So usually the day after, we all would board buses and go out there and clean. I was in heaven. Due to Zillas, we had to wear protective clothing because people left all kinds of stuff deemed hazardous. My sophomore year, I found an unopened King can of Miller High Life. I don't know how I did this, but I hid it in my pants and worked the rest of the day. On the way home, I bragged to everyone on the bus that I found a can of beer. My buddies Boyke and Hoover, FYI. All of my friends were called by their last names, came over the next weekend, and we proceeded to drink all the beer in that King can. This was just another reason why I loved racing. Anyways, in this time, I went to many races at CMS, but I never went to the Winston, NASCAR's All-Star race, which is what it was called back then, until 1994. That is when my friends from New York came down. I could not wait until May. We always had a blast. Here is just a few great memories from that time. Our friend Anna Rose getting plastered and going into the ladies' restroom and never coming out until we asked a lady to go in there and find her, drinking a lot of beer. Speaking of beer, my friend Boyke and I drank Pabst Blue Ribbon. It was cheap, and we both liked the taste. Well, every year, our friend Gary would always ask us why we drink that crap, and we would always say, "Don't worry, Gary, by the end of the night, you will run out of your beer and ask us for a PBR. Sure enough, he did, and we took a picture of him with one, going to Hooters, and me telling Dale Jarrett, one of the nicest guys, to screw off because I thought he was ignoring me. FYI, he wasn't. There was also that time I looked out the window and saw the van rocking back and forth, all of us being overserved and making Justin, who was not of legal age to operate a vehicle, drive us home. Talk about a trial by fire. One year, Gary thought he got a screaming deal on some tickets. He was so proud to tell us how much he saved. Well, the reason they were so cheap was because they were the second row next to the track. Due to Zillas, it was so loud and dirty from the race cars. I remember patting him on the shoulder and proclaiming, "Great seats, Gary," in a very sarcastic manner. I never let him live that down. Being that NASCAR was sponsored by Winston, they always gave out free packs of cigarettes. There was only one of us who smoked. They would try to give them to us, and I would always say thanks, but I don't smoke. But, pointing in Gary's direction, he does. I think he smokes enough for all of us, so give them to him. They also gave you a discount on tickets to the Winston if you had a certain number of Winston wrappers. Well, Gary, the engineer at my work, smoked a lot of Winstons, and he always let me clean out all the wrappers from his car. It was a win-win situation for both parties involved. He would get his car cleaned out, and I would get a discount on tickets.
Woohoo!
The first year, Justin, Mark's younger brother, had a tattoo on his shoulder, but did not tell his parents. His dad was against all that crap. I remember being at a pool and Mark teasing Justin and saying, "It sure is hot, Justin. Why don't you take your shirt off?" Great stuff. One that is really special to me was in 2002. I just got back from Wisconsin and was ready to get my life back in order. The usual suspects heeded the call, and I made sure to invite my old college roommate, Kofa, who lived in Bristol. Yes, that Bristol. It was kind of thank you to him for taking Boyke and I to see a race there and taking me to a few more races there as well. Thanks again, Kofa. If I recall, the racing was not spectacular, but having the old gang back together was very good for the soul. One of the last times we were there was not fun at all. Sure, it was groovy to go down memory lane, but Gary, who always went with us, was not well. Heck, the poor guy couldn't even go to the race. He was confined to a scooter because he could not walk. And one of our friends got super drunk. Looking back, I do not blame him, cripes. His dad was very sick with brain cancer, and he was going through a messy divorce. He just needed to unwind and not think about things for the night. We went to the race, but I should have just stayed back with Gary. I did not have fun. I went one last time with Mark, my childhood best friend, in 2018. We just went basically to honor Gary, his dad, who passed away in 2017. FYI, being older, we made sure we had lots of water. Back in the day, it would have all been beer. Oh, and by the way, I had to ask Singer who was driving. Being I don't follow the sport anymore, I knew nothing. There are so many other stories to tell, but being old now, I kind of forgot them. Charlotte Motor Speedway was my home track, but my friend, Boyke, and I wanted to go to others too. So in 2004, we took my truck and his little camper to Talladega. Sure, it was like 10 hours to get there, but we were up to it. We had a blast. Here are some highlights. The track had like 1,900 acres of free camping. It was first come, first served, but hey, it was free. We set up a site, and we were so happy to be there that we proceeded to drink a lot. The next day kinda sucked. We had no air conditioning, no shade, and it was like 95 degrees. We limped over to the track to watch a bush race and feeling like crap. And like with all tracks, hot girls were quote-unquote promoting Sobo energy drinks. When asked if we wanted some, we politely declined. But the manager of the promotion came over to us and said, "Dudes, you guys really need some of these." I think he saw how hungover we looked and decided to intervene. Thank God he did, because not even half an hour later, we felt great. Matter of fact, so good that we started drinking again. The problem with that was, we only brought 2 beers with us. The stands were nuts. We saw fights and grandmas covering their grandsons' eyes and proceeding to show the crowd their new and improved features. We camped next to some good old boys, and one of them said to us,
"It's hotter than the hubs of hell."
We had no idea what he was talking about, but we still say it to each other today. Like I said before, the camping was free, but the showers, well, they would cost you $10 if I recall. And after 3 days, we so needed one. This was the race where everyone in the stands thought Dale Earnhardt Jr. won. But actually, Jeff Gordon did. I am not going to try to explain it. Just watch this video to see how it happened. Let's just say that the crowd was 98% pro-Junior, and they were not too happy about this. They proceeded to throw full cups of beer, or whatever they had, onto Gordon's car when he came around while doing a victory lap. Years after, people asked us if we threw beer too. Our response, heck no, we didn't. We didn't have any beer left to throw. Dudazillas. There is nothing like a pack of cars coming off turn 2. I would always say, this is how we won the Cold War. The USSR had nothing to compare to this, plus we had all the hot chicks.
Holy Peter, Paul, and Mary!
Looking at all the pictures, 2005 was the year of NASCAR. Boyke and I went to Darlington, also Kofa, and I went to the All-Star race, and he took me to both Bristol races. Let's start with Darlington. Gary and Mark came down with us to this historic track. Boyke had a little camper, and we borrowed his brother's too. We had quite the setup. The one thing I vividly remember is having Boyke's brother's camper at my parents' house for one night in the driveway, and their snobby HOA sending them a letter. Freaking commies. Besides that, we had a blast. Sure, it was kind of cold, but we had enough beer to stay warm. Gary had to pee real bad, but didn't want to fight the crowd, so he asked to borrow my jack to cover up while he leaved himself in a cup. That crazy guy, FYI, I really miss him. This was the first race Boyke and I went into the actual pits after the race. Our motto was act like you belong. That served us well for this and future races. Also, one of my old college friends was working for NASCAR, and he was in charge of Winner's Circle. He was a big shot, so security never said anything to us because he would yell at them for disrespecting his friend. It is great to have friends in high places. In 2006, we went to Pocono, another great time. Thinking about it, this is one of those tracks where you see better in the infield rather than spending a lot of money to sit in the stands. Just my opinion. We met and hung out with our friend Gary's twin. This guy acted exactly the same as Gary. Heck, he even held a cigarette the same. Boyke was historic on this trip. We befriended some people from my hometown in New York. One night we were drinking a few with them, and one of their kids, who I think was 10, told us he wants to be a crew chief when he grows up. Well, when Boyke and I were walking back to the camper later on that night, he proclaimed, "That kid won't be a crew chief. Heck, he will be lucky to be digging ditches." This was a classic statement if I say so myself. Anyway, I wonder whatever happened to that kid. Up next was Martinsville in 2006. This was one of my favorite tracks. After reading my description of the track, you will agree with my analysis. Boyke and I deemed this a quote-unquote Gary-approved track because we were so close. Matter of fact, we found that it was easier and faster just to walk to our camper to pee than it was to go to the bathrooms. Another perk of camping at the track was just sitting around, drinking beer, and watching the poor bastards sit in hours of traffic. Todd, who came to the Winston a couple of years before, and some of his friends came to the race with us. It was always great to see that magnificent bastard. This was another track where we ended up on pit road. After the race, we saw NASCAR actually tearing down the winner of the race engine. Sure, that was groovy, but there was a really hot lady tearing into it. FYI, I was more interested in her than the engine. I remember trying to take an actual nose of a car, and one of the security guys were at least 100 feet away and yelling at me, "Son, that is not a souvenir."
We interrupt this program to bring you a very random thought from Andy.
In 2007, we went to Michigan, and 5 hours to Boyke's and then 12 hours to Michigan were worth it. Mark, his wife at the time, Gary, our friend Scott, and two others that I forgot their names were there waiting for us. Boyke, our friend Hatcher, and I went up. The infield was nuts. Hardly anyone slept, and let me tell you, anything, and I mean anything, went. One night, we all ended up on top of the Gary Yacht. That is what we named Gary's RV, and proceeded to get super drunk. Gary and the girls were trying to sleep but could not because we were making so much noise up there. Gary finally came out and said, "What? You guys bowling for dollars up there?" Jesus! All I hear is yelling and then scrape. That sound he heard was Boyke using his flip-flop to scrape a puddle of water from the AC unit. Anyways, I had a flashback to 1984 when he would yell at Mark and I because we were being too loud playing with Legos. That same night, our friend Hatcher helped a random stranger back in their RV into their spot. He yelled at all of us, "Hey guys, watch this." They had a shower set up in the infield for everyone. It basically was a trailer with some showers on it. I remember Mark walking back to the RV after taking one and proclaiming to all of us, "Now I know what prison is like." This was another track that I was really glad we did not buy good tickets to sit in the stands. You basically can't see anything, and plus the racing actually sucks. Very little or no passing at all. And in March of 2008, it was Atlanta. It actually snowed, and the camper had a broken heater. So in other words, we had no effing heat. We still had fun, but we were cold doing it. One of the first days we were there, we met a good old boy named Cale. He proudly told us that he was named for the great Cale Yarborough. We hung out all weekend with him and his crew. He was super excited to explore the pits with us after the race. I'm sure he still tells everyone about it, and actually helping Jeff Gordon's crew push their car up in the hauler. The last race I went to was kind of on the Andy bucket list. It was the 2011 Daytona 500. Mark and his then wife lived in Orlando, so I took the train down there and we went to it. Trevor Bayne won it, and we all were wondering who in the wide world of sports he was. No one heard of this guy. Anyways, that was one of the last NASCAR race I went to. As of when this was typed, some of the folks are no longer with us. We are all older and quote-unquote maturer. Others have moved to other parts of the country. Basically, life has happened to all of us. So I kinda like typing this stuff out. To me, it is very therapeutic. Sure, I get kinda depressed thinking about the great times we had then, but I think, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. That was pretty funny. And so, I went down memory lane and typed all this down after receiving a very random text from Boyke about our NASCAR trips.
Will Andy ever stop getting random tools that have less than 1% of ever being used? Will he ever not drink a cup of coffee while he's working on something? Will he ever answer the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Will he take an afternoon nap? Tune in for another thrilling episode of the Casa de McBride Chronicles to find out more.
Hey kids, thanks for watching and for all that's right with the world. Click thumbs up or thumbs down if you are a bitter person because you still live in your parents' basement. Laugh in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andy has left the building. Good night.
He will always be the king no matter what.